This video is about how to build the largest size box from a panel of wood. It's a rule of thumb with subwoofers that the larger the box, the deeper the bass. So this will let you build the largest box volume from a panel of wood that you might have on hand. Or if you've got a box size in mind, it will help you decide how large of a sheet of wood you need to build it. The first step is to download the free spreadsheet. So here's the location, www.mfr-eng.com/box_panels_new.xls, and I'll save this to my desktop. Now I'll open the spreadsheet. You will need to have Microsoft Excel installed on your computer for this to work. The yellow boxes here show where you enter the information. The first two numbers, X and Y, are the dimensions in inches of the panel of wood that you have. In this case, I've put in a half sheet of MDF, 48 by 48. This dimension is the thickness. In most cases, you'll use 3/4 inch thick MDF, and that's what I've entered here. The kerf is the width of the saw blade, so when you cut a piece of wood, you actually lose a little bit to sawdust, and that's the kerf. So if you don't know what the kerf is, you can take your saw, cut the wood, and measure it. I've chosen 1/8 of an inch, which should cover a typical table saw. So the dimensions, the Y value here should always be greater or equal to the X value. So when you're entering X and Y, make sure you put the smaller value first. Now looking over here, you'll see 3 different cutting patterns, type A, type B, and type C. Type A is a cutting pattern that's most useful when the panel of wood is roughly a square. The type C cutting pattern is most useful when the panel of wood is very long and thin, and the type B cutting pattern is useful for the in-between panel of wood. So in this case, we've got a perfect square, and we'd expect the type A cutting pattern to be most useful. Looking up here in the table, we see that box 1, box 2, and box 3 give us the outside dimensions of the finished box. So if we took this 48 by 48 piece of wood, cut it according to the type A cutting pattern, it would give us a finished box that has the dimensions 25.44 by 23.94 by 12.66. X1, Y1, and Y2 tell us how we have to cut that panel. So if you look here at the diagram, X1 is this dimension and this dimension. That would have to be 23.94 inches. The Y1 dimension, 12.66, would be used for this dimension and this dimension, and the Y2 dimension, 22.44, would be used here. And the finished interior volume of this box would be 3.47 cubic feet. Now if you look at the type B and type C, you'll notice that those have negative volume. Well, that means that the type B and type C cutting patterns are not useful for this panel of wood. Type B and type C are useful for other size panels, but just not this one. So let's try putting in a longer and thinner panel, and we'll still stick with a half a sheet, but instead of cutting it into 2 squares, we'll cut our 4 by 8 sheet the long way. So that would be 24 inches by 96 inches. Well, now if you look at the volume numbers for type A, B, and C, all 3 of them are positive numbers. So for this case, you could actually take your pick. Type A, B, or C cutting patterns would all work. Now the type C cutting pattern gives you the largest volume. It gives you 3.47 cubic feet of interior volume, and it's a little bit less for the type B pattern and a little bit less still for the type A cutting pattern. So if you're really trying to maximize the box volume, you would choose C, but you may choose B or A for other reasons. You may not like the finished dimensions of the type C box. And once again, the finished dimensions are shown in the box 1, box 2, box 3 category. So that's about all there is to using this tool. Now there's one other thing to point out, which is the box dimensions are listed in optimum order for the subwoofer design toolbox. So if you want to picture exactly how the pieces fit together, we can take them from this spreadsheet and directly enter them into the subwoofer design toolbox enclosure design tool. I'll show you how to do that. Let's use the type C cutting pattern. So the box 1 dimension is 25.5, the box 2 dimension is 24.0, the box 3 dimension is 12.59. Here I've opened the subwoofer design toolbox, and I'll just put those dimensions in here, and they're in the same order. So 25.5, 24, and 12.59. I'll also change the wall thickness to match 3/4 of an inch. And just as a sanity check, the volume of the boxes match. Here the subwoofer design toolbox shows 3.466 cubic feet, and that matches what's shown in the spreadsheet. Now I'll show the template. The template shows how all these pieces go together, and once again there's a match. If you look here at the X1, Y1, Y2 dimensions, you can see that they match the dimensions shown in this cutting guide. So you don't need to have the subwoofer design toolbox to use this spreadsheet. It just helps you visualize how the pieces go together.